What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Finance with Parks. In today's video, we are going to do a reaction to a video Dave Ramsey posted honestly a while ago, but I was scrolling through YouTube the other day and saw this title and just watched 10 seconds of the video and thought, man, I have to do a reaction to this. Because I think, unfortunately, it's becoming much more relevant and much more common. The title of this video is, I'm 29 years old with nearly $1 million in debt. That is just an absurd amount of money to be taken on at 29 years old. I don't even know how you break down $1 million. I mean, you'd have to have, what, $400,000 in student loans, $400,000 in a mortgage, you're at 800 grand, $100,000 in credit cards. I mean, that's just a crazy amount to try and total up. So with that, let's get into the video and see how this person somehow came up with $1 million.
Channing is with us in Washington, D.C. Hi, Channing. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Sure. What's up?
So I live in D.C. I just recently got married about 3 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my husband and I have really decided we need to be really focused on the same page about our finances. We actually have our first class of financial peace this evening.
Oh, cool.
But together we have probably just under $1 million in debt, and we want to know how to get debt-free without filing bankruptcy.
Okay. How much of that is a mortgage?
The mortgage, about $210,000.
The mortgage is $210,000. Just over 1/5 of their debt is just from the house payment. What other things are they borrowing for? I mean, cars, credit cards, and student loans must be huge. All right, let's keep going before we go any further.
So you have $600,000 in what?
Should be $800,000.
$335,000 is about in student loans. We both have advanced degrees, and then the rest is really credit cards and personal loans.
So you have $300,000 of credit cards and personal loans?
We have about $335,000 in student loans and about $136,000 in credit cards, $44,000 personal loans, and $35,000 car loans.
That is absurd. They're advanced degrees. I really hope those are PhDs. So one thing I want to say right there that's kind of unfortunate, right, is that just tuition for colleges has become unaffordable in a lot of scenarios. And that's sad that society, which for a good reason, right? You want to go to college, you want to get a degree. I went down through the same path. But the fact that private institutions or out-of-state tuition, I mean, if you're paying, I don't know if they have a PhD or if they just have a master's, but over $300,000 in debt, right when you graduate, you have to have a job that's paying over $100,000 to even make that remotely worth it. I mean, the problem is that a lot of people are graduating with $100,000, $200,000 in student loans to get a job that pays $50,000 to $75,000. I mean, that kind of income is just not enough to be able to pay off that kind of student loan. I mean, it's just not even close to being worth it. Now, we'll let this keep playing to look at the personal loans and the credit cards, but just right off the bat, I can say Dave Ramsey is one of those that's very anti-credit card. And this would be the perfect scenario why. If you are the type of person that is going to get a credit card and spend a bunch of money that you cannot afford or you cannot be prepared to pay off at the end of the month, do not get one. Shred it. You don't need it because it's going to put you in so much of a worse scenario than getting a couple of the free travel miles or a couple of the free rewards that come with credit cards.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay. So what in the world?
So, yeah. So
I mean, are you both on this, or is this just one of you that's completely lost your mind?
Well, I have the majority of the student loans, and he has the majority of the credit cards. My credit card debt is not great.
Okay, so why does he at 29 years old run up $100,000 in credit card debt?
Well, he's 32, but I think it's one of those things where just making really poor financial decisions, thinking be able to pay it down as you go, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So
See, there's a great point with credit cards, right? He probably started out and he's like, oh, I can make a couple purchases there. Oh, I have $1,000 left over on my credit card. Oh, I'll pay that off next month when I get the bonus that I'm supposed to or the promotion I'm supposed to. You don't pay off that $1,000. Next month, you have $3,000 on the credit card. Oh, the same thing. You get into this bad habit of just putting money down on a card and never paying it off. All of a sudden, it spirals into $100,000, and now you could be paying 20% in interest on that credit card. So let's just take that as an example. You have $100,000, and you leave that for a year. You leave that balance of $100,000, don't pay off any of it. At 20% interest, you would have accrued $20,000 extra just because you left that balance on there. That's why they're so dangerous. Now, what's funny about this that they called into Dave Ramsey, and just in general, like a scenario like this for financial advice, this is not a finance problem, so to say. This is a spending problem, and that's what's really hard for financial people to try and help fix, because this is just going to take sheer willpower and discipline for them to be able to get out of this kind of debt. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to stop spending money. I know that sounds dumb and kind of just non-value added, but when you get into a problem like this, there's some math things that you can do to help, should I pay off this debt first, or how should I be getting myself out of this hole? But at the end of the day, it's really going to be, you have to have the willpower to say no, not care about what anybody thinks of you, and just never leave the house ever again for the next 5 years until you get this under control. All right, let's keep going.
you both have advanced degrees. What are your degrees in?
we do. So I have a degree in both of our advanced degrees. No, he has an MBA, and I have an advanced degree in policy. I work in the government, and we actually both do now at this point, actually.
Okay, so your household income is what?
Our household income is about $230.
Okay, all right.
So household income is about $230. That's a very good double salary, right? And so that the $1 million seems like a ton, which it is, don't get me wrong. But if you think about it from a ratio perspective, so let's round up to $250,000 a year that they make. They have $1 million in debt. You're at about 25%. I think there's maybe not quite a bit, but I think there are a lot of people out there that are making $50,000 a year that have probably close to $200,000 in loans. So although this scenario is very drastic just based on the sheer value, the ratio of income to debt is probably not that absurd.
Is there recognition on both of your parts how absurd this situation is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
All right.
So I think we're both a bit scared and want to do anything we can to avoid.
Okay, great. Then I'm on your team. I can skip that step. Okay, good. Okay, well, you're scared, and you should be. You're disgusted, and you should be.
We are.
You're in the early stages of being sick and tired, and you should be. So,
Yeah.
Here's the thing: you guys have been living at across the.
So this poor girl, I want to keep this positive because they admitted, right, that they made a big mistake. And Dave Ramsey is probably about to eviscerate her spending habits or his spending habits, whoever is at fault here with the personal loans and the credit cards. But what I want to focus on in the next piece is how do you get out of this sort of scenario, and what would I recommend you do? It's a little bit different than Dave Ramsey's approach. So let's continue on the video, but just thinking about, okay, what do I make a priority? How do I pay off these debts? And what can I do to just kind of help, improve this situation the best you can?
You've been living at about 10x where you're going to get to live for the next 3 years.
Okay. Yep, that's true.
So I'm getting ready to destroy your life as you know it, because your lifestyle is considerably above your extremely good income, and has been for a period of time. And so you've gotten used to spending like you're in Congress.
Right.
This is going to be very emotional for y'all. And you're going to have to look at it through that lens and through a spiritual lens, or you're not going to make it. You're going to have to not care what anyone thinks, including each other, because you're not going to spend any money on anything ever for the next 3 years. Like you've been spending. Let's pretend you're making 210, and I know you just got married, but let's pretend you've been doing this as a couple as you went along. You've been making 210, spending 310. I'm getting ready to put you on 30.
Okay.
You're not going to see the inside of a restaurant unless it's your extra job, or you're waiting on some of the people you work with during the day.
So let's talk about the math for a second. That line about only seeing the inside of the restaurant if it's your second job, that one was kind of rough, but also a little funny. You think about the math on $1 million in debt. You have $1 million. Let's try to average interest rate. So the mortgage, right now you can get a mortgage for 3% interest, but there's, let's say, maybe at 5%. Student loans, man, they're at like 6-7% interest, and then the credit cards can be absurd, 20 to 25%. So let's just, to make easy math, let's say in aggregate their interest rate's about 10%. What that means is they had $1 million. They could take them 10 years. They could spend 10 years paying off $100,000 a year or $1 million in total and not have made a single dent on the principal of those loans. I mean, that hurts so bad to think about. So just please, you have to be so careful, especially in, they're 29, which is fortunate and unfortunate, right? It's fortunate for the fact that they have some time to be able to cut into this and get themselves out of this hole. However, to start off your career, your financial life, taking on or trying to dig yourself out of that hole, you're going to spend so much time just wasting ground that you could have had, investing that money. Or just be so careful with credit cards, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You're going to pull up at a stoplight driving a piece of crap car next to people that have an income a fourth of yours with a nicer car than yours.
Right.
And you're not going to care. That's going to be the cool part.
Okay.
You're going to reach the point you don't care what other people think. And that might be a fair journey for you or him. I don't know which one it is, but some of you guys you've been purchasing a lot of stuff for a lot of reasons that are going to change.
Yep, they have to.
Yeah, they have to, because you're on a suicide mission right now.
I think just to summarize here, and they go on a little bit more to talk about the specifics of the loan, the value of the house that they have. If you haven't watched the video, I highly recommend you go and watch it because it was very eye-opening and honestly just kind of a scary thing to think about. Like, you really have to be careful and very conscious of, if you do have credit cards, make sure you pay them off at the end of the month. Don't use them as a tool to buy things you can't afford. If you're in a scenario like this, you always have to use cash or a debit card. And that, you may laugh at that or be like, oh no, that's stupid. But if you can't trust yourself to not spend money above what you're making, I mean, that's the kind of drastic thing you're going to need to do. So to summarize, what his method of paying off debt is to list the debt's smallest to largest, and then to make minimum payments on everything except for that smallest debt, and pay everything you can towards that one loan. And once you get it paid off, then you move to the next smallest loan, still outstanding. The part that I don't like about that is it doesn't take interest rates into account. So his thought process is that mentally and emotionally, the accomplishment of paying off debts is a lot more beneficial than the money you're losing in the difference in the interest rates. But for me, they have $100,000 in car loans. That's going to be about 5% interest rate, right? Then at $150,000, their credit cards or personal loan, that could be anywhere from 10 to, like we talked about earlier, 25%. I am 100% making that my top priority. That credit card debt, if I'm getting charged 25% in interest, regardless if it's larger than the $100,000 debt that they have, there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to pay that off first, because the difference in interest that you're paying, 5% versus 25%, I mean, maybe the mental accomplishment is great, but I'm going to be very mentally accomplished not to be paying 25% interest anymore. So that's where we differ a little bit in just strategy of, I understand you want to, go baby steps at a time. However, if you have an interest rate that's absolutely crushing you, I think you have to make that your top priority. I want to keep this positive because Dave Ramsey was a little bit rough, but to be honest, you have to have somebody who's going to tell you honestly, hey, this is a bad situation. At 29 years old, you're going to have to change a lot of things in your life to get out of this hole. However, there's not a lot of, financial things you can say to make that situation better other than you're going to have to cut back on your spending. You're going to have to stop caring about what car you drive. You're not going to be able to go out and eat, $100 steak dinners anymore. And even though you're making $250,000 a year, 90% of your income is going to have to go towards paying off debt. So I could tell you guys watching is just be careful of credit card spending. Be very aware with student loans that, if you've already been to college, it's too late, right? Hindsight's obviously 2020. But the amount of money tuition has just skyrocketed the past couple of years. It's really bootstrapping a ton of people our age where they graduate and, a lot of their money is going to be spent towards interest trying to pay off the way they got their current job. So anyway, hopefully that was a helpful video. We appreciate you guys following along. If you could check us out on Instagram at Finance with Parks. Still posting videos every Sunday and Tuesday. If you enjoyed this content or this more reaction style video, if you could like it down below and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and remember, finance is fun. See ya.